Good morning, Venerables. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sien Chu Corey, and our topic this spring has been Dharma through difficult times. And these difficult times could be a plethora of things, from financial issues, work-related issues with other people, and coping with change, which is quite prominent in today's times. Maybe there was something catastrophic that has happened to you, and now your life has changed from what was normal and what you have grown used to. We are creatures of habit. And if something is no longer in its place, we may struggle with finding our groove and ways to deal with it. Conflicts at work are quite commonplace now. Friends and family disagreements, anything that is bringing us discomfort. And our purpose is to see that the difficult situations are part of our reality. If we have it within our means, of course, we should change the difficulties. But often we are not able to, or know what change would be beneficial or good or wholesome. So the question at hand is, how do we do so wisely? Let's define what difficulty really means. Difficulty, according to the dictionary, is a thing that is hard to accomplish, deal with, or understand. So by definition, apparently, difficulty is not a positive thing. However, the Buddha has indicated that there are 3 or 6 important minds or mental states that we should develop if we want to reach any of our positive goals and overcome difficulties. So the etymology of paramita, there are a couple of ways that we can describe it. The word parama, meaning highest, most distant, and hence chief, primary, most excellent. Hence the substantive can be rendered excellence or perfection. Most of the time it's used as the perfection of. Another way to look at it is para, far, distant, remote, opposite, ulterior, further than, beyond, on the other or farther side of an extreme. And mita, fixed, set up, founded, established, or arrived. I like those two broken down. When we say gone beyond, what are we going beyond? Beyond what? We're going beyond irrational thought, anger, hatred, sadness, and insanity. And then what are we arriving to? What have we got there? Arrived where? The other shore is where we've arrived. In Buddhist terms is what it's called. But in the layman's terms, we have arrived at sanity. We have arrived at decency. We have arrived at love, friendship, basically all the good stuff kids go for. And these 6 perfections have the power to change our mindset, our reaction, and our general demeanor during difficult times. It is the practice of the path that leads from self-liberation and to help others liberate. And the thing about the paramitas is it's not about self-liberation and it's not about liberating others. It's actually about both of them. In the meaning of paramita, the Buddha said, don't just hope for the other shore to come to you. If you want to cross over to the other shore, the shore of safety, the shore of well-being, non-fear, non-anger, you have to swim or row across. You have to make the effort. This effort is the practice of the 6 paramitas. The practice of the paramitas is to come from this shore of suffering, anger, fear, sadness, hatred, and to reach the other shore of calmness, peacefulness, and liberation. And the 6 paramitas, and there are 10 as well, but we're going to just hit on the 6, the primary mental states of dana paramita, the generosity of giving of oneself, sila paramita, the virtue, morality, discipline, proper conduct, and precepts, kasanti paramita, patience, tolerance, forbearance, acceptance, and endurance, vira paramita, energy, diligence, vigor, and effort, dhyana, one-pointed concentration, contemplation, and prajna paramita, wisdom and insight. And honestly, we probably won't get through all of these, but we've had a few discussions on these last year. Sherry gave wonderful discussion on this meditation, which is number 5, the dhyana paramita. So starting with the paramita of dana, the perfection of giving. Dana means giving or offering one's possessions with pure mind for the welfare of others. There's 2 main objectives. Apparently I don't know the proper use of 2 here. To subdue the immoral thoughts of selfishness, greediness, or excessive craving, which create suffering and samsara, and develop the meritorious thoughts of selflessness, doing service to others. It's the deepest level of a perfect act of the giving dwells in conscious emptiness. There is no giver and there is no gift and no recipients. What this means is to give with a mind of emptiness. More easily understood is to give without the expectations of something in return, be it recognition or material gain. So if you give with an empty mind, you're giving without expectations. But what happens when you have no expectations? You're eliminating the craving. You're eliminating attachment. So when we have perfect dana, there is no me, there is no gift, and there is no you. But how does this help us in difficult times? Well, it's something that many times considered free, albeit it's kind of wishy-washy now, but we have time. We have time that we are able to give to people. That's something that doesn't cost us anything. That's no physical, material things. There's no monetary exchange. We are capable of doing charity work without attachment of the self. Isn't something that we can all practice as charity? Dana is the entryway into the paramitas. It's the easiest of all the paramitas. And it's a way for us to begin on the path of the bodhisattva and to help others while also helping ourselves. Susan Elbaum Jutla wrote The Practice of Giving. Giving is one of the essential preliminary steps of Buddhist practice. When practiced in itself, it is a basis of merit. It leads ultimately in liberation from samsara, the cycle of repeated existence. Even those who are well established on the path of emancipation continue to practice giving, as it is conducive to wealth, beauty, and pleasure in their remaining lifetimes. Bodhisattvas complete the dana parami, or perfection of giving, to the ultimate degree by happily donating their limbs and their very lives to help other beings. So like all good deeds, an act of giving will brings us happiness in the future. In accordance with the karmic law of cause and effect taught by the Buddha, giving yields benefits in this present life and in lives to come. Whether or not we are aware of this fact, but the volition is accompanied by understanding that we can greatly increase the merits earned by gifts. And what of the recipient? There's a story from the Buddha. The citizens of an era were competing with their king to see who can make the greatest offering to the Buddha and Sangha. The citizens had obtained everything for their offering except for fresh honey. They sent out messengers, each with plenty of money, to buy the last missing ingredient. One of these men met a villager who happened to be bringing a newly harvested honeycomb into the city for sale. And the messenger approached the peasant and offered him all the money he had. It was something like 1,000 pieces. And the peasant said, "Are you crazy? This honey isn't worth a farthing, much less 1,000 pieces. Please explain yourself." And the messenger told him that the honey was worth so much to him because it was in the final item on the menu for the citizens' offering to the Buddha. The peasant spontaneously replied, "Oh, if this is the case, I'm not going to sell it to you. I will give it to you, but only if I may receive the merit for the offering." And the citizens were impressed with the faith of this man, who gave up all his potential earnings from selling this honey and enthusiastically agreed that he shall receive all the merit from this offering. And the practice of giving is also beneficial when directed towards somebody who is not spiritually advanced. If the donor's intention is good, then even though the receiver is immoral, the donor will earn the merit, and further, by his act of giving, strengthen his own disposition to renunciation. The Buddha said that practicing of giving will aids us in our efforts to purify the mind. Generous gifts, accompanied by wholesome volition, help to eradicate suffering in three ways. First, when we decide to give something of our own to someone else, we simultaneously reduce our attachment to objects. To make a habit of giving can thus gradually weaken the mental factor of craving, one of the main causes of unhappiness. Second, giving accompanied by wholesome volition will lead to happy future births and circumstances favorable to encountering and practicing the pure Buddha Dharma. And third, the most important when giving is practicing with the intention that the mind becomes pliable enough for the attainment of Nibbana. The act of generosity will help us develop virtue, develop concentration, and develop wisdom right here in the present. These three stages make up the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path, does it not? Sila, Samadhi, and Panna. And perfecting the path leads to the extinction of suffering. So Sila, Paramita, is the perfection of the precepts. Sila is morality, good conduct, and observance of the precepts. Is the foundation of all the meritorious deeds, because good behaviors is the beginning of life of purity. Without Sila, there is no Samadhi, no concentration or meditation. Through lack of Samadhi, prajna or spiritual advancement cannot be achieved. So what are we observing in the precepts? We're refraining from taking life, not killing any living being, refraining from taking what is not ours, stealing, refraining from the misuse of the senses, not having too much sensual pleasures or sexual pleasures, and refraining from wrong speech, and refraining from intoxicants that cloud the mind. A lot of people think the precepts are here to bind us, but they're not. They are vows that are here to remind us. We aren't supposed to kill. We aren't supposed to lie, cheat, steal, sexually misbehave, or consume intoxicants. If we did have these, we wouldn't have the moral compass to guide us, as we may intentionally hurt somebody. If we have this guidance like the precepts, we can be mindful and be of benefit instead of harmful. One thing I want to focus on is the intoxicants. A lot of times during difficult situations, people tend to self-medicate. And why did the Buddha say no intoxicants? He wasn't just a party pooper. He didn't like to have, it's not that he didn't want to have fun. It's not that at all. What's the biggest tool we have in Buddhism? What separates us from all sentient beings? It's our mind. It's our ability to comprehend, process, and learn. And that's the glory of being born into the human realm, is that we have the ability to listen to the Dharma, we have the ability to understand the Dharma, and we have the ability to put the Dharma into practice and to be a benefit of ourselves, benefit to others. And intoxicants are what dulls the mind and hinder our ability to be mindful, to be present and act in wholesome ways. So the precepts are our training wheels here. They guide us until we find our own balance. Once we reach enlightenment, the training wheels get to come off. An enlightened person can respond correctly to all situations without having to consult the list. And if we practice Sila, we develop self-compassion. We are more wholesome. These precepts aren't just moral. When they're followed, they allow us to be of benefit to ourselves and others. Because Santi is, the Paramita I actually gave a talk on last year. And it kind of holds a special place in my heart because I got to witness it while I was in Colorado, like all the things that I did wrong. Like Kasanti Paramita is patience, tolerance, forbearance, acceptance, endurance, forgiveness, and acceptance of truth. And it literally means patience, endurance and forbearance. It is the endurance of suffering caused by others and the capacity of receiving. And to defeat our pain is not the teaching of endurance. It's about embracing it and transforming it into practice. It's to patiently and tolerantly forbear hardships and difficulties. The perfection of patience is extremely transformative. It's the transformative perfection that turns our difficult times into a spiritual benefit. It's natural for us to avoid difficulty. This is a habit we developed as an instinct. No one has ever told us that we need to avoid pain. We just learn to avoid it. And Kasanti is the practice of training ourselves to do the opposite of running from our problems. We can now turn towards it and make it an ally in our practice. And the Buddha said that if one arrow strikes you, you will suffer. But if a second arrow hits you in the same spot, you will suffer 100 times more. So look, Buddhist teachings drive this into us, that we know that there is suffering. There is illness, there is death. These are all to be expected. There's understood and acknowledged that these things are there. We even chant about it in the 5 remembrances. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. This chant serves to remind people that fear and uncertainty is just a natural part of life. It's part of making peace with our reality, no matter what. It's expecting impermanence, a lack of control, and unpredictability. We think that things should be otherwise, and from a Buddhist perspective, this adds unnecessary difficulty, hardship, and suffering. So instead of reacting with fear, we can practice Kasanti and work with the fear. I'm going to quote Ajahn Brahm. When we fight the world, we have what is called suffering. The more we accept the world, the more we can actually enjoy it. Last year, I discussed Kasanti during COVID, and COVID still exists. We may be coming into some resemblance of normality, but the war between Russia and Ukraine has kind of put COVID in a hindsight. Still there, but that's what we're all focused on now. So now we have that on our table. We went from one difficult situation to another. So what do we do when we get devastating news? What do we do when we feel that intensity that this world is just becoming too much and you start feeling claustrophobic? And patience is the key. Flow with the current. We should especially flow with the current when the current is so strong. The smart way to face these difficult moments is to not oppose them. You're just going to prolong and extend the suffering. And as I mentioned earlier, it's habit for us to expend a lot of energy to avoid problems and to avoid pain. And acceptance is a major step. We must, of course, recognize the limits, of course, of acceptance. Acceptance will keep you from misplacing our efforts and give us a more realistic perspective. And if we look at the word acceptance in Buddhist terms, acceptance is our ability to stay present. So when life throws us something we find painful or not pleasurable, the mind tends to avoid or resist it. It really pushes against it. So when we are sad or depressed, rather than accepting that's what we're feeling, we happen to engage in various strategies or self-medication techniques that we have developed over time to try to change our feelings, which ironically, the resistance to our current feelings only makes things worse at times. So in order to experience and have the potential to change anything, we are accepting it. We are leaning into it, and we are simply letting go of the effort and energy that we're invested into it, and then just accepting the reality. So Dharma Master Cheng Yin had this important comment to say about the paramita of patience. In our cultivation, the Buddha gave us 6 paramitas to practice, and they are tools that will enable us to safely ride over tumultuous waves of affliction. But if we haven't developed patience, endurance, it will actually be hard to practice the other paramitas. To truly practice giving and moral discipline, we'll need to have the capacity to endure challenging conditions, to be diligent and have the meditative concentration and wisdom. We'll also need the stabilizing force that patient endurance provides. In Buddhism, the people with the greatest courage also have the highest endurance, the highest patience. We are able to endure the suffering brought onto us by others around us. This stems from the understanding that there is suffering, that there is a cause of suffering. And with this, we embrace the hardship and transform it into more of a practice. We are transforming our mind by not reacting to the difficulties with negativity. We endure this by transforming it into a more of a positive attitude. We can't escape challenges. The challenges will be there regardless. They are a byproduct of cause and conditions. However, when we encounter a challenge, we can do so with a positive mind. And some of the positivities that come from patience is love, calm without anger, free from faults and anger, die with a clear mind and a good rebirth. And this probably be the last paramita that we'll be able to get to, but Vira, energy and perseverance. And it sounds like a heroic courage to not give up when the going gets tough, but to continue exerting effort consistently to the end. And what this does is it brings us a benefit of strength to be able to finish what we've started without discouragement. And it also helps us to overcome feelings of inadequacy and the laziness of procrastination, where we distract ourselves with trivial things so that we don't actually do what we need to do. Finally, it enables us to succeed in accomplishing the most difficult of tasks and stops us from giving up on those who are hardest to help. So it means energy and effort. It is to defeat one's habit or laziness. It is to treasure every moment of life. It's to not escape the day-to-day activities through excuses. Even the Buddha came into energy when he was fighting Mara, and Mara was trying to persuade him not to. And the Buddha said to Mara, "Death in battle with passions is more honorable to me than a life of defeats." We have to understand life, which is no easy task. Something to think about here is a lot of times when we want to meditate or clean the house or cut the grass, it's very easy for us to come up with excuses. And the same holds true when it comes to facing difficulties. Why do we do this, though? This is habit. This goes back to nobody told us to run away from pain. We created this pattern, and somebody can call this pattern laziness. If we want to liberate ourselves from difficult times and suffering, we must be willing to put in the effort. How are we going to be happy if we can't put in this effort? There's a jataka tale. It's called "Sometimes Just Let It Be." Once the Buddha was walking from one town to another with a few of his followers. This was in the initial days. While they were traveling, they happened to pass a lake. They stopped there, and the Buddha told one of his disciples, "I am thirsty. Please get me some water from the lake." The disciple walked up to the lake, and when he reached it, he noticed that some people were washing their clothes in the water. And right at that moment, a bullock cart started across the lake right at the edge of it. And as a result, the water became muddy, very turbid. The disciple thought, "How can I give this muddy water to the Buddha to drink?" So he came back and told the Buddha, "The water in there is very muddy. I don't think it's fit to drink." So the Buddha said, "Let us take a rest here by the tree." About a half an hour, again, the Buddha asked the disciple to go back into the lake and get him a drink of water. The disciple obediently went back to the lake. This time he found that the lake had absolutely clear water in it. The mud had settled down, and the water above it looked fit to be had. So he collected some water in a pot and brought it to the Buddha. The Buddha looked at the water, and he looked at the disciple and said, "See, you let the water be, and the mud settled down to its own. You got clear water, and it didn't require any effort." The moral here is your mind is also like that. When times are difficult, when things are disturbed, your mind is disturbed. You must let it be. Just give it a little bit of time, and it will settle on its own. You don't have to put effort to calm it down, and we can judge and make better decisions of our life when we are calm. Calmness is the key. There is more to Buddhism than just goodwill and attitude towards difficult times. My goal here today is to introduce you to the Paramitas in a simple form that we can start practicing now. As it is apparent in life, does not come with a script. Contradictions, deficiencies, unsatisfactory desires, and are all elements of our everyday landscape. In Buddhism, there is a different way of looking at problems. Unlike Westerners that don't insist on denying them or avoiding them, the attitude is more adaptive. And Buddhism teaches us to be more adaptive. The values from previous talks that we've had this spring, as well as the future talks that we'll have, will instill a different set of values when it comes to difficulties. So briefly, I have wanted to cover the Paramitas because a while back ago, I was having a very difficult time. And I came in and I talked to Master. The Master said, "You need to study these." So I see the benefit that that the Paramitas hold. I see the positive that they have the potential for anybody to start practicing, even just starting with one of giving. Maybe you have stuff around the house like clothes that no longer fit, or some extra food, or anything that could help anybody else that's having difficult times. And these things will help transform your mind in the difficult times and help make your life better. And I got to witness this. At the beginning of the year, my wife had a surgery. And then the day later, I had a surgery. And within 2 days, neither one of us had the capabilities of getting out of the house. I had a ruptured Achilles, and my wife was going to have a 6 to 8 week recovery before she was able to even lift anything over 15 pounds. So I had the great fortune of the monastics helping out greatly. They came by and made sure that we had plenty of food. They made sure that we had anything that we needed, and were such a great help. And through this time, I started developing the mentality of the why is me mentality. Like, why is this happening to me? Because this was the second time I ruptured my Achilles in a year. And I went in with a positive attitude, and then about 6, 8 weeks later, it turned into why is me, why is me? And then Venerable Kung Shi was like, "You need to do metta meditation." And so I did. And it turned into why not is me? why can't it be me? Now all of a sudden I have the opportunity to be with myself. I can't go anywhere. I can't cut the grass. I don't have any other excuses other than to be with myself. I get to turn this difficult situation into a practice. And I got to watch how my mind works. Like when unwholesome or non-beneficial thoughts arose, I got to squash them and pay more attention to things that too busy Corey would not have gotten the opportunity. And it wasn't fun, but it was no longer a negative difficulty. It was just, we'll get through this and life will be better. So I hope that anybody can take these paramitas and just take one and start practicing it daily. And if you're experiencing difficulties, hopefully you can find the benefit and you can find an opportunity to turn hardship into a practice. I'm going to conclude with the 4 immeasurables. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be without the supreme bliss, which is free from all suffering. And may all beings live in the great equanimity, free from all attachment and aversion. Thank you.